Daf Yomi, Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 58. Top of the page, Avodah Zarah Nun Chet, Amud Aleph, top of the page with the words Ikla Rav Huna Bereid Rav Nachman Mechoza. It's a story. Ikla Rav Huna Bereid Rav Nachman Mechoza, Amar Le Rav Zarabi, Zarabi Liakim Shmai, Trokale, Doneto, Nashid, Nitrod. Rav Huna, son of Rav Nachman, happened to come to Mechoza. Rava said to his attendant, Rav Eliakim, close the gates, so that people who might disturb us should not come, and we may focus on clarifying the matter. Emar Damriana, the Varmi de Me, Meahu Chamra, de Me, Meahu Chamra, Miamri. Rav Huna, the son of Nachman, entered into Rava's presence. Rav Huna, the son of Nachman, said to Rava, what is the halacha in a case like this, where a Gentile stirred the wine without intending to offer it as an idolatrous libation? Rava said to Rav Huna, the son of Nachman, it is prohibited even to derive benefit from it. Rav Huna, son of Rav Nachman, asked him, but wasn't it you, master, who said, if a Gentile stirs the wine, just again, a word of caution, word of disclaimer, everything that I'm reading here is simply me reading the Talmud. I'm not adding my opinion, either for or against it, certainly not for it. It's just the words of the text. I'm not making any decisions regarding halachic decisions. I'm just reading the Talmud. If a Gentile stirs the wine, he does not thereby render it wine used. The reason why I'm saying it is because the text of the Talmud has been used time and again to incite and stir up, no pun intended, anti-Semitism among Gentiles, because there was a lot of Jew and Gentile separation. And I'm reading subject matter that has to do with it. That's why I was a little bit cringing in the past few dafim when I read these things, because it's very possible that people who are not of Jewish descent would become offended by all of the prohibitions against the Gentiles. But again, I'm just reading the text here. If a Gentile stirs the wine, he does not thereby render wine for libation, as Rava permitted the sale of wine in the case of Gentiles. Rava answered, say that I said that it is permitted to sell the wine that was in the barrel and benefit from all the proceeds except for the monetary value of that prohibited wine that was poured into the barrel of wine. Did I say that it was permitted to derive benefit from the monetary value of that prohibited wine? Rava said, when I arrived at Pumbedita, Nachmani, meaning Abaya, surrounded us with Amoraic traditions and with Tannaitic sources cited in a Braita that indicate that in the case of wine that was stirred by a Gentile, it is prohibited even to derive benefit from the wine. Shmata de'Avodah min Avodah Asur Asar Shmuel v'Tiveria v'Asar Yochanan v'Amar le'Levi she'enan b'nei Torah v'Amar li Tiveria u'Nirda einan b'nei Torah d'Mechoza b'nei Torah. Rava explains, Abaye cited Amoraic traditions as there was a certain incident in Nirda in which a Gentile stirred the wine, and Shmuel deemed the wine prohibited. And there was a similar incident in Tiberias, and Rabbi Yochanan deemed the wine prohibited. Rava recounts his reply. And I said to Abaya, Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan deemed the wine prohibited only because the people in those towns were not people well versed in Torah, and it was necessary to distance them from transgression. And Abaye said to me, are you saying that the people of Tiberias and Narda are not people well versed in Torah, whereas the people of Mechoza are people well versed in Torah? This is obviously not the case, and therefore you should not have permitted the sale of the wine in Mechoza, even according to your reasoning. Matniata de Gardamim goy shel kadach b'meneket v'hela o shita min hakosech ziro lechavis ze haya maseh v'asaru ma'ila b'hano loy b'shliho. Abaye cited a price that teaches as follows: in the case of a Gentile market inspector, the Agar Damim, who was in charge of measures and prices in the marketplace, who drilled a hole in a barrel with a tube and drew wine from the barrel through the tube in order to taste it, or who tasted the wine from the cup that was poured for him and then returned the residue to the barrel. What is the halacha? This was an incident that occurred, and the sages prohibited the wine. Abaye said, what does this mean? Is the Braita not prohibiting one from deriving benefit from the wine? Rava replied, no. It is prohibiting one only from drinking it. Ihachi, listim acher kidiktan sefa, charam goy shehoy shidyad lechabis, uresavor shel shemen hi, v'nimtzei shel yain. Ze haya ma'aseh. Abaye said, if so, let the Braita teach that the wine may be sold, as the latter clause of the Braita teaches in the case of a Gentile confiscator who extended his hand into a barrel of wine thinking it was a barrel of oil, and it was found to be a barrel of wine. What is the halacha? This was an incident that occurred, and the sages said it may be sold, as the Gentile had no intention of touching wine. The Gemara concludes the refutation of the opinion of Rava is indeed a conclusive refutation. Rav Yochanan ben Arzava, Rav Yossi ben Naharai, Havayati v'kashatu chamra, atahu gavra, amru le ta ashkenan, lebatar dirma nechasa, yitkalai milta. De goy hu chad asar afilu v'hano echad shara afilu b'shtio. Amar Yehoshua ben Levi, man di asar shabir asar, man di shari shabir shari, man di asir. I'm just continuing on to 58b because it's a middle idea. Meimar amar asar kadaita derabanan hanishich lekashatu. Elavad hay chamrahu, v'nasche ma'id shari shabir shari, meimarabar sal kadaitach derabanan ki hani cham lechashatu, v'amru ledidita ashkenan, elavad shichlahu kashatu v'lo nasche. What that means is, in English, the Gemara relates, Rabbi Yochanan ben Arza and Rabbi Yossi ben Horai were sitting and drinking wine. A certain man came and said to him, come, serve us drinks. After he poured the wine into the cup, it was revealed that the person was a Gentile. One of those sages prohibited one from even deriving benefit from the wine, and one of them permitted the wine even for drinking. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, the one who prohibited the wine properly deemed it prohibited, and the one who permitted it properly deemed it permitted. As both opinions are viable. The one who permitted the wine holds that, and how we turn to 58b, holds that the Gentile says to himself, can it enter your mind that the great sages like these are drinking liquor? Rather, this is certainly wine that they're drinking, and therefore the Gentile may have poured it as libation. Yehoshua ben Levi continues to explain that the one who deemed the wine permitted properly deemed it permitted, as he holds that the Gentile says to himself, can it enter your mind that the great rabbis like these are drinking wine? And they said to me, a Gentile, come and serve us drinks. Rather, it is certainly liquor that they are drinking, and therefore he did not pour it as libation. Basically, it's tomato over here. Yeah, Yeah. The Gemara asks, but doesn't the Gentile see whether it is wine or liquor? The Gemara answers, the incident occurred at night. The Gemara asks, but doesn't the Gentile smell it and recognize that it is wine? The Gemara answers, this incident occurred with new wine, whose smell does not diffuse. The Gemara asks, but didn't the Gentile touch the wine when he drew the wine in the pail? Therefore, it is a case of a Gentile's unintentional touch, which renders the wine prohibited. The Gemara replies, no. It was necessary to teach this halakha because the Gentile was pouring from one vessel to another without touching the wine, and therefore it was a case where the wine was poured by the force of the Gentile's action without any intention of offering it as a libation. And in any case where wine is poured by force of the Gentile's action without any intention of offering it as a libation, the sages did not issue a decree prohibiting the wine, and it is permitted to drink it. Amar le, ana dichtiv kamina tavcha, tivcha maschayena. Amar le, lashen toleras, belashen chacham milias. Rabbi Asi asked Rabbi Yochanan, with regard to wine that the Gentile mixed with water, what is the halacha? Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Asi, and why not say wine that the Gentile diluted with water, as that is the term that is usually used? Rabbi Asi said to Rabbi Yochanan, I say wine that was mixed, as is written, she has prepared her meat, she has mixed her wine. Proverbs 9:2. Rabbi Yochanan says to Rabbi Asi, well, it is true that this is the language of the Bible. The language of the Torah is a language in itself, and the language of the sages is its own language, meaning the terminology of the Bible is not always the same as the terminology employed by the sages. Sometimes it is, but there are many cases where the sages have their own way of saying things. Mai Amri asur mishum lech lecha Amri nezira sechal sechal lecha lo tikra. Rav Asi repeated his question, what is the halacha? Yochanan says, Rav Asi, although the Gentile did not touch the wine when diluting it, it is prohibited by rabbinic decree due to the maxim, go. We say to a Nazarite who is prohibited from drinking wine and eating grapes, go around, but do not come near to the vineyard. Although a Nazarite is prohibited only from eating produce of the vine, he is warned not even to come into the proximity of a vineyard as a protective measure to ensure that he will not transgress this prohibition. So too, in many cases, the sages decreed certain items and actions to be prohibited because they understood that if people would use them, they would eventually transgress Torah prohibitions. Rabbi Yirmiyah ikla lesita chaza chavar lebazgi goyim ish Yisrael minei v'yasar lehu mishum lech lecha amen ziro schol schol lechalma lo tiknav itvar nami amar Rabbi Yochanan yamri le amar Vasi amar Rabbi Yochanan yen shemazgu goy asur mishum lech lecha lech mis lech lecha, it's lach. I think it's lach. Amrin na nezira schol. The karma lo tikra. From Yirmiyah, Rabbi Jeremiah happened to be in Safta. He saw wine that a Gentile diluted with water, and then a Jew drank from it. Rabbi Yirmiyah then deemed the wine prohibited to them due to the maxim of go. We say to the Nazarite, go around, but do not come near to the vineyard. It was also stated, Rabbi Yochanan says, and some say that Rabbi Asi says, That Rabbi Yochanan says, wine that a Gentile diluted is prohibited. Do it to the maximum, go. We say to the Nazarite, go round and go round, but do not come near to the vineyard. Chesh lakish yikla levatra, chaz Yisrael nikach liperi, tilo maaseri, yasar lehu chazama yad yisagdi, lehu goy v'shel Yisrael yasar lehu. Reish Lakish happened to come to Botzra, a town east of the Jordan. He saw Jews were eating untithed produce, and he deemed the produce prohibited to them. He also saw water to which Gentiles bowed down, and yet Jews drank the water, and he deemed the water prohibited to them. Amale ad miktorach alach zila darbet betzer labhainu batzara u'mayim shel rabim ein esrim. Reish Lakish came before Yochanan and told him about the incident. Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, while your coat is still on you, go and retract your rulings. This is because the town of Betzer, which is mentioned among the cities of refuge, Deuteronomy 4:43, is not the same as Botzra. Botzra is not part of Eretz Yisrael, and one is not obligated to separate tithes from its produce. The water is also permitted, as it is water that belongs to the public, and water that belongs to the public is not rendered prohibited. So it's kind of a novelty, at least for me. I never knew that if it's public water and people worshipped it, it's nothing, because it's public water. They worshipped it, that's on them, but it didn't affect the water. That's what I gathered from this thing. So if the non-Jews worshipped water, it's still permitted, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara notes, Rabbi Yochanan confirms to his line reasoning, and this concludes the Daf of the day.